Meeting's back to order. We've returned from closed session. There we go. We're back from closed session. Direction given, no actions taken. Pledge of Allegiance. Councilman Weber, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Yeah. I salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next item is adoption of agenda. We have the agenda before us. Any councilman have any comments on the agenda?
I move that we adopt the agenda.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Let's call a roll.
Motion carries with 7 yeses and 0 nos.
Thank you. Consent calendar, public communication, hearing of non-agenda items. Do we have any non-agenda item public?
Mr. Mayor,
comments?
our first speaker is Lonnie Lind.
Oh, okay.
You're good.
Is it ready to go?
You're
good.
good, Lonnie.
Green light, fancy. Okay, you all have a flyer in front of you. I am just here to invite you to our Community Emergency Operations Center exercise that we host every year. I'm with Cal Water, and this year our event is in Chico. We rotate back and forth between Chico and Oroville. Last year we hosted it in Oroville. This year we'll be in Chico at the location you see in front of you. We provide this training not just to our own organization, but to the stakeholders in the community who might possibly be involved in emergency response at any given time. So with all the fires and floods and what have you happening, earthquakes this last time around, we like to make sure that we form a point of communication with folks prior to an actual emergency taking place. So this exercise is it's a morning training session that's just sit and observe, and then an afternoon breakout session where we walk through a scenario and break into teams and work through that scenario. And it's honestly one of the best training programs I've ever been to. It's a really good one. If you guys would like to participate, you are more than welcome. We would love to have you there. There is an RSVP down below. We'll be providing lunch, and this is a certifiable course, so you will receive CEUs for emergency response sort of training credits in the future. That's all.
Any
Thank you,
questions?
guys.
I have a question.
Yes.
When, what's the deadline for the RSVP?
If you tell us the day before that you want to come, you can
We're
come.
good?
Yep.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
You might be limited as to your lunch choice. That's about it.
All right,
I have another question.
sure.
Yeah.
You said certify, what's a CEU?
Continuing education units. So that's the language that's used in our industry that are required for certifications. This one, if a grant application, for instance, requires that staff be trained in emergency response, this counts for that. The person who comes through all of our trainings and performs them, he used to be one of the vice presidents of our company and set up our entire safety response program. But prior to that, he was a fire chief in San Jose and several other places. Very, very, very good at this sort of stuff. And he worked to get this program certified. So if you do have something like that requires a certification, this will provide that.
Thank you.
Very good. Any other questions?
And any community members or
Yeah.
organizations who you know of are interested in that, we've provided flyers over on this side as well.
Thank you, Lonnie.
Thank you.
I would add that I've attended this at least once before, and the better part of it is when you have a FEMA disaster grant, many times the FEMA requires some of your staff to have some of this training. So it's certainly a valuable asset for any of you that may have the time and effort to participate. And he's a very good instructor. I would definitely that. And plus, you learn the resources of Cal Water, which there's emergency response teams that you don't even know about. That And I know our water treatment plant operators always need that CE co-op. So thank you very much, Lonnie. I appreciate that.
Our next speaker is Bill Spear.
Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, City Council, I have a verse and a prayer. The verse today is the one that came up on my Bible app. It says, "Honor your father and mother," which is the first commandment with the promise that it may go well with you and that you may enjoy long life on earth. It's Ephesians 2, or 6, verses 2 and 3. And seeing how it is coming up Father's Day, and by the time our next council meeting is here, we'll be past Father's Day. So I want to take this opportunity to honor all the fathers. You guys are the city fathers, and also have fathers, a lot of fathers here. And so thank you for being the city fathers. For all you do, for the example of leadership, and for all who serve. Father, we thank you for the verse for today, and Lord, for our access as we boldly enter into your throne room, to our Father that is in heaven. And we pray for all these fathers. We pray for our fatherless nation, that they would raise up fathers to lead and to guide. We pray for our city fathers here, that that there is a difference in our city because of the leadership, because of the men of God raising up, for the fathers raising up this next generation. We thank you for all those who serve. We thank you for our police and our fire. We thank you. Continue to lift up the rescue mission, fathering the fatherless, the Hope Center for what they do, training people to work, and so many more organizations. The Father's House, it's in their name. It's a place to come and for people to learn their identity, who they are in you. Thank you for the agenda this evening, and pray that you would continue to give supernatural wisdom, supernatural guidance, supernatural provision. We declare Oroville a city of God, and we pray, Father, that it would bring glory and honor and praise to your name. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Happy Father's Day.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is the cameraman.
Good evening, Oroville City Council. Well, I have another update in the former employee saga of Jonathan Sanzone. I don't know if any of you remember him still after this long or from my speeches, but here's the most recent picture. Everybody take a good look. This man back in 2021 falsely arrested me. Shortly after, he then transferred to the Glenn County Sheriff's Department. And then around August, September of last year, he allegedly stole about $3,000 from a homeless man that he was saving to hopefully get some work done on his teeth. And I learned about this back in September of last year, that he was placed on administrative leave. Now he's been officially fired and charged with a felony for this alleged act that he did upon this man. So it's just interesting how this cycle of behavior, he's not, I've talked to other people around town, he's not the only one. I'm not the only one that's had a potential civil rights violation with him. But it's just interesting how he's gone from Oroville to the Sheriff's Department and now to another county where finally, hopefully his crimes against the public will be stopped. But even the news is reporting that because he has a clean record, he most likely will get probation. But hopefully the Glenn County District Attorney will use his full authority of the law in prosecuting him, because crimes committed against the public, especially by public officials who we elect to hold our public trust, are extremely egregious, and they should not be taken lightly. You people are given a position of power over us and make decisions that affect our very lives. And to, abuse that power is not something that should just be, a little pat on the back, don't do it next time sort of deal. The other subject matter I'm going to talk about tonight is, well, some of you may have seen me at the last council meeting, but I was unable to do public comment as I had to deal with an incident with Oroville police as I was attending one of our restaurants here in town, the Oro Dam, Dam Bulls, and walking to this very meeting, I encountered some juveniles that pulled a knife on me because I was, quote unquote, an ugly motherfucker. And it's come to my attention that, we have some juveniles, we have some great kids in this county, in this city too. I was at the city, address. We got some great teams, but it's a small minority of juveniles in our town are needing some help right now. And, our school district, something I'm going to be looking into is start, keeping an eye on our school district. I mean, most recently they got in trouble. I'm almost out of time, but you probably heard about that, punishing special ed kids and kids of color times higher rate than normal.
Time.
Thank you.
That being said,
Mr. Mayor, that is the last of the public speakers on non-agenda items.
Thank you. Thank you all. Next item would be the consent calendar. Council have any questions on the consent calendar?
I move that we approve the consent calendar.
Do we hear a second?
Second.
Moved and approved the consent calendar as agenda sized. Any questions in that? If not, then we'll ask for the roll call, please.
Motion carries with 7 yeses and 0 nos.
All right. Item number 6 under regular business, the 2023 Community Development Block Grant application. Amy? We get some pictures, all right.
Good evening, Mayor Pittman and council members. My name is Amy Bergstrand. I'm the Director of Business Assistance and Housing Development. Tonight, I wanted to give you all a preview of the upcoming 2023 Community Development Block Grant NOFA, which is the Notice of Funding Availability. Typically, the NOFA is released in January. However, there's been considerable amount of changes to this year's NOFA, and they're projecting late July. Once the NOFA is released, it will be published for 30 days to applicants to review without any applications being submitted. After those 30 days are over, a window will open for competitive process applications and remain open for 30 days. The OTC applications are going to open at the same time, but only the 2019 waitlisted projects will be reviewed and accepted. After those 30 days, then all other OTC applications will be accepted until the funds are exhausted. Please keep in mind that all of the information I'm about to review is subject to change with the final NOFA. However, it's not expected to change. And the information I just covered will make more sense as I do my presentation.
Thank you.
Now I need these. All right. So today's objectives are to outline the expected changes to the 2023 NOFA and to discuss all the possible activities to use the Community Development Block Grant funds. The funding is available to the state from the United States Department of Housing and Community Development, and it's pursuant to the Community Development Act of 1974. The California Department of Housing and Community Development makes grants available to non-entitlement jurisdictions, which the city is one in the state. The 2023 NOFA will be released with approximately $30 million in federal funds in the following categories. 80% has been prescribed for over-the-counter, and that's about $24 million. Those are going to be reviewed for threshold and approved on a first-come, first-served basis. 10%, $3 million, has been set aside for competitive scored and reviewed applications, and those are going to be reviewed and submitted after the application due date. 7% has been reserved for administration, and that's approximately 2.1 million, and 3% for state operations, and that's around 900,000. The 2019 waitlist projects are priority funding for the CDBG funds in 2023. They're going to have 30 days to complete applications before opening up to any new OTCs. These projects are ones that all the non-entitlement jurisdictions has submitted in 2019 that were not funded. The last 3 years, they have been trying to fund down each of that wait list. This is the last year that they're going to do it, and then next year, hopefully, it'll open up to a more regular NOFA. The OT estimates for this year is there's 31.5 million in 2019 waitlisted projects, and that's 15 applications. There's 12 million available from the 2022 NOFA, 8 million from a prior funding that wasn't dispersed, and then 24 million available from this 2023 NOFA. So altogether, there's about 44 million available for OTC projects, minus what was already in the wait list, which is 31.5, leaving only 12.5 million for new OTC projects throughout the state. So each jurisdiction is going to be able to submit only 2 applications for a total of 3.25 million. You can either submit 1 OTC and 1 competitive for up to 3.25 million, or 2 competitive applications at 250 each, so potentially 500,000. The OT applications this year, this is one of the big changes. They include housing programs, which is first-time homebuyer, rehab, code enforcement for up to 1.5 million. Economic development programs, which is micro-enterprise, for-profit loans, and technical assistance for 1.5 million. Public facilities, which also would include fire engine purchase for up to 3.25 million, and then infrastructure projects up to 3.25 million. The competitive applications only include public services, which again are 250,000 per application, 2 max, unless you also do an OTC, and then planning application of 250,000 per application, 2 max. Eligible activities paid for the state CDBG funds must also meet one of the 3 national objectives listed in the CDBG federal statutes as follows. They need to benefit low-income housings or households or persons, slum and blight, or urgent need. And each application must either have a housing or economic development nexus.
Can we ask a question real quick?
Yep.
I have a question in regards to, go back to the number 6 competitive applications. Maximum per jurisdiction is 2, right?
2 applications.
250,000
If you were
per applicant?
Yeah, if you were to only do competitive applications, it's 2 max completely. So it's 250 per applicant.
Right.
Yeah.
And so we're looking at competitive in regards to nonprofit organizations,
Yes,
not for-profit,
Yes.
nonprofit. Thank you.
you're welcome.
And in the past, how many were we allowed to fund?
It actually changes every year. Our the last one we applied for in the 2022 was the neighborhood cleanup, and we were only able to apply for that because we hadn't spent 50% of the previous ones. But in the 2020 application, we did 3. We were able to do 3 applications up to 500,000 each.
So it's got more restrictive.
Right, and again, in the 2020, we were able to do first-time homebuyer, rehab, and 3 public services. This year is so restricted because of the OTC wait list, but they anticipate 2024 to go back to a normal NOFA.
Gotcha.
And they're also anticipating to get back on the normal NOFA schedule, so hopefully we'll get a NOFA in January or February for 2024. Can't promise that because originally this was going to be May or June, and now we're back to the end of July.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
So today I'm looking for a little bit of direction from council because if we can only do 2 applications, so we either can do 1 OTC, which is either a housing program, an economic development program, a public facility program, or infrastructure program, and 1 competitive, which would be a public service, or we can do 2 public services. A little bit of status on the housing department is we are currently do not have any more CDBG funding for first-time homebuyer program. We're currently funding our program through Cal Home Program Income, and we have about $500,000 left, which is equivalent to 5 loans. We do have $2 million in home funds that has been suspended for almost a year, and we do not know when we'll be able to use it again. The last I've heard, HUD had received the Housing and Community Developments. What happened was, that I've been told, is the HCD had some problems with their program guidelines that HUD was not happy with, so they required HCD to make a bunch of changes. Those changes had been submitted to HUD, and HCD is waiting to hear if they're appropriate or not. Once they get approval, then HCD will get them, and they'll internal process, will have to review all of them. Then they will have to make appointments with all of us jurisdictions to go over what the changes will be. We'll have to change our guidelines, and then we'll have to get approval from you guys as well as the state before we can start utilizing those funds again. So I have been waiting almost a year. I have no idea when that end sight is. If we do not have funding, we'll have to close the first-time homebuyer program or put it on hold. We currently have 3 public services that are being funded through the 2020 application, and 2 of them have already expended 50% of their current funds. 2 of them have already reached out to me asking to apply for the next round. And the third one will have expended 50%, I'm assuming, by the due date because their program is busier in the summer months of camp. Either way, we're not going to be able to fund all of the public services this cycle. My recommendation, if we do public services, that we'll either put out a RFQ or release an application for them to apply to us for the funding, and then the council will need to decide what nonprofit that we will be funding for that round. I also am recommending that we go for the first-time homebuyer program to fund. Keeping in mind that with $12.5 million, it's highly, I won't say highly unlikely, but it's possible that we won't be funded. I have to be one of the first ones in line, which I plan to be ready, start getting ready now to be the first in line. But if I'm not, then we won't be funded for that either. So I have, as far as the competitive application goes, I feel like we'll probably be funded in whatever we apply for. I'm usually pretty good in competitive rounds.
Okay. Any more questions?
So,
I just wanted to add here, I know Amy and I spoke a couple weeks ago, and we felt like bringing this before your council now would put us in the best position, because again, Amy's done a fantastic job in years past in being able to secure money for the city. But a lot of these are going to be processed first come, first served. So if we can get direction today, then she could be well positioned. The minute that NOFA comes out, hopefully we can be as competitive as possible, because again, with only $12 million statewide, it's going to go quick, and it's obviously a lot of people are going to be disappointed.
Oh, Councilman Johnstone, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, help me understand this. So we can do 2 applications of, so 1 OTC and 1 competitive, or 2 competitives?
Correct.
And the first-time home buyers program is a competitive?
Is an OTC.
Is an OTC. So we can't do 1 and 1?
No.
Okay.
We can't do 2 OTCs. We could do 1 OTC and 1 potentially public service.
Okay, but not 2 of 1, right?
We
So
can do 2 public services, but then we wouldn't be able to do an OTC.
OTC.
But we can't do 2 over the counter, though. Only 1.
Again, this is the confusing part even for me, is this is the first year they've ever put programs competitive with infrastructure projects. And so it's made it a little more difficult this year.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor Smith.
Understanding the OTC, assuming that we go that direction with 1 on the competitive and 1 on the OTC, it states include the following activities, because you'd mentioned housing programs. But if we do it that way, then all of those slots, then, so it'd just be pigeonholed into one of those OTCs? Or would then those dollars be available for the various items underneath the?
No, we could choose housing programs or economic development programs or public facilities or infrastructure. Within the housing programs, we have the ability to apply for just first-time homebuyer, just rehab, just code enforcement, or all three of them, or two of our other. We currently have $750,000 for owner-occupied rehabilitation program. I would not recommend going for that. We are having a bit of a trouble moving the money currently that we have there. Code enforcement has Cal OES funding right now for, I believe they said for the next 2 years, and that was something that I know that they were working in a budget anyway, so I wouldn't really recommend that we go with that either. My recommendation is first-time homebuyer only.
And that, those dollars are just then into that?
Yes.
So if you have dollars left over, you cannot, it has to stay in there?
Right.
In that particular
And we've
part of OTC?
not, in the history since I've been here, we've never had leftover first-time homebuyer funds.
Probably not, but just so that I'm really clear on that.
However, one of the concerns that Brian has is what happens if HUD releases the funds for home and we have 2 million, plus we have now this new grant. Well, it's going to be close to a year before we get these funds, if we are awarded these funds. And because they've already given us extension on the home funds for the 2018. I'm sure they will give us extensions on the 2019, and I'm sure they'll extend them longer because of the fact that they've had us on suspension for almost a year. But if that does happen, then that would be the first time we've had to send money back, which I don't anticipate that happening.
Never send money back.
I don't like to. So that happened with the CV money that we had. We didn't have any applicants for the utility assistance program, so we got to move it to another project.
I guess that's what I'm asking, and
Yeah.
is there any latitude of being able to move?
Well, Amy, correct me if I'm wrong, but if the first-time homebuyer program eventually will result in program income, which then can be utilized for other
Then it can
resources.
be
But it's
potentially.
it's not that, let's say we hypothetically receive 1.1 million in first-time homebuyer, that would all be earmarked for and dedicated for a first-time homebuyer program. But as those proceeds as the city is repaid, then that's now program income, which could then be used for other eligible expenses.
So in other
But
words,
no, I can't take any of the 1.5 million and move it to one of the other things. And
okay.
it's not likely they would approve that because it goes through a large standard agreement amendment, which is not something they like to do.
And I guess where I'm driving at is that obviously under one of the competitive, that's it, that it's just into that nonprofit organization.
Yes.
And
So-
that goes directly to them. With the OTC, I was just thinking there's a little bit more wiggle room, if for lack of a better way of saying it, but it sounds like it's not.
No.
So, okay.
Councilman Riggs is up next.
Thank you. I heard you share that we have currently 3 programs funded with a competitive application, and that 2 have already reached out to you regarding possible opportunity for future funding. But if we go the route of 1 OTC, 1 competitive, is it possible for like an MOU between multiple organizations? No.
No, we've asked that, and in few years past, I was able to apply for youth services and be able to fund more than one youth service, but they are not allowing that. Each nonprofit is one contract. And they're looking at their contract management too, because it takes a lot to manage each individual one and make sure that they're benefiting low and mod income and they're following all of that. So they're trying to limit what they have going too. So they're not giving us any flexibility. I've asked if we could take CDBG program income that we have allocated to the Oroville Convention Center and possibly put some aside so that we can do like a gap loan for the public entities until next NOFA, and I'm not able to do that. So,
Thank you, and thank you for your diligence. I know that many, I know at least one of those organizations very much depends on that funding, so I
They all
appreciate your
three
hard
do.
work. Yeah, I imagine.
yeah.
All right, Councilman Goodson's up next.
Right. My first question is, how many years have we been funding the first-time homebuyer program?
Boy.
I mean,
I,
decade?
I've been here almost 20 years, and it's been longer than I've been here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. And two, when I look at what's been recommended from the city, staff recommends submitting one application for OTC. And specifically, staff states that there are only two options. But there's actually four, but you narrowed it down to two that the staff recommends.
Right. The other ones that are there, the public facilities and infrastructure, we don't have anything ready to go. So we would have to have architectural drawings, site plans.
And
We don't have any of that for any projects that
Okay.
would be eligible. Economic development, we could definitely do that. We just don't have a loan underwriter in-house any longer.
Okay.
We don't have a current funding source to fund that. So we'd basically be starting new. And right now, we're referring most of if we have any inquiries to 3 Core and to the SBDC, and they're handling those very few calls that we've received over the last couple of years.
Okay. I just wanted to know what your process of elimination was and how you made that determination. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilman Thompson?
Thank you. Yeah, I'm very much in support of your recommendation. The First-Time Homebuyers Program it's such a vital program for our community. We know that statistically, communities and neighborhoods where there's a higher percentage of homeowners, it is a huge benefit to the community. Homeowners typically take better care statistically of the properties and whatnot. So it not just benefits the homeowner, but the neighbors around. So helping people who might need a little bit of support to get into their first-time home is a well worth venture that I'm in full support of.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Vice Mayor Smith?
Yeah, on the home loan program, so with the quantitative easing continuing with the feds, what's our interest rate? Because I haven't been on that committee for a while now.
Still 3%.
So it's 3. So to me, that program would become even more attractive because here's 3% money. Oh my gosh, come on, Oroville, come to the city and take advantage of it. It's a great program.
Same with our rehab program. It's also 3%, and you can't get any private loans to repair your home anywhere close to that.
No, not at all.
Just
And
a plug.
Yeah, back to the other comments that have been made. This is just I think if we want to continue to promote home ownership and all of the good that comes from that, as Councilman was pointing out, I think we need to continue with that. So, yeah.
Any other questions? Do we have any questions from? Go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, I do not have any blue speaker cards on this item.
Okay. Well, with that being said, I'd entertain a motion from council.
Direction, yeah.
Well,
There's no motion, but direction.
Direction. What's the direction of the council?
Go with the recommendation of
yes.
staff.
Yes.
One
One
OTC.
application for OTC and one application for the competitive.
Great.
Direction?
That is enough
And
direction.
actually, and the OTC would be for the first-time homebuyer program, correct?
First-time home
Yes.
buyers.
Thank you.
So then, what will happen is once the NOFA is released, then we'll be doing a public hearing and an application. I could do those both at once. So, but before the public hearing for the application, I'll be coming back with the applications from the nonprofits for your choice.
Very good.
Thank you very much.
Just so the record is clear, the written record is clear, I think that there was, I saw, unanimous head bobbing on
Yeah.
the approval. There were no objections to that, right?
So were you saying, your recommendation was for the OTC, right?
For 1.5 million OTC, first-time home buyer, and then one application for public services of 250,000.
So everyone, no objection to that among the council. Great. I just wanted the record to be clear in case.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate the presentation.
Good job, Amy.
Yeah. Item number 8 is the lowering of speed limit in school zones.
Skip 7.
7, sorry. Wow. Excuse me. Community enhancement funding request.
Do you need to?
Thank you, and I know Councilmember Smith is going to step out right now to
Okay.
recuse himself. Yes, at the request of Councilmember Riggs and Councilmember Weber, the council requested that the council consider.
Hey, Brian, hang on one second, just to dot the I and cross the Ts. Councilmember Smith has recused himself for a financial conflict of interest.
Right.
We have to disclose the reason why.
Got it. Thank you.
There we go. Good. Now you're up.
All right. Again, we established a fund, a community enhancement budget unit, a couple months ago at the request of the council to fund projects that benefit the community or have some sort of public interest in them. And we put $20,000 in that for this fiscal year. And this request from Councilmember Riggs and Councilmember Weber was to appropriate or fund up to $10,000 for the upcoming 4th of July fireworks show. And I'll let Councilmember Weber and Riggs, if they have anything to add into that.
Go ahead. Who's first?
Just that the Oroville Chamber of Commerce is currently fundraising on behalf of the fireworks display. And I believe that a gift from the city could help encourage further giving and allow our community to properly celebrate the 4th of July. Although I personally do not enjoy fireworks one bit.
Wow, good to know.
I will be in bed and angry
know.
that people will be noisy.
Good to know.
But I hope everybody else can enjoy a lovely display.
Councilmember Weber?
Thank you. Yeah, when we first funded that account several months ago, I was hoping that this would be the ultimate goal we would look to do because we understood that through conversations with the Rotary that they were going to be putting their efforts into light the bridge, which is a super noble thing to do, and I think it's going to be an excellent project. So that left that vacuum there. So here the chamber stepped up and they're doing it, but they do need some funds. So if we have the ability to do it, I think it would make an awesome gesture toward our community to not let us go without our fireworks display and a show of patriotism and to go and carry on the traditions of 4th of July that a lot of us hold near and dear to our hearts. So I appreciated Councilmember Riggs calling up and asking, and I was like, absolutely, I'm all over that. So let's do it.
Okay. Looks like Councilman Goodson's up.
Ron, I'm just curious, and I know that for many years, Rotary has been the forerunner in accumulating the funds. But, other than businesses that may put in 1,000 here, 1,000 there, most of the money was generated from the individuals in the community.
True.
They had a real vested interest, and so I'm just wondering if you plop down 10,000, where is the community involvement then? And I'm sure that Riggs has an answer to that after Thompson.
It looks like Councilman Thompson's next.
How much did we give them last year?
The fireworks show, the city didn't provide anything. The supplemental benefits fund provided up to 5.
Yeah, I think it was like between $4,000 and $5,000 last year.
And that was kind of like gap financing for the funding of it. I will tell you, though, it's been up and down. Fireworks go way back, 20 years. At one time, DWR funded it. At one time, the city funded it. It's been back and forth. It didn't happen in 2013, I believe. And then Rotary took up the ball to try to generate funding for it. So it's been an up and down ball game. And if you look at other cities, many cities fund it and some don't. There's really no precedent here other than the fact that the city has in fact funded in the past. And that I can give you from the historical aspect.
Thank you. I have a lot to say on the matter, but I'll try to keep it as brief as possible. I think it comes, for me personally, it does come down to, you know, what is the 4th of July? What does it represent for our community, and, you know, why I do it at all? If it's just an explosion in the sky that annoys some people, I'm not saying that that's, you know, what you see it as, but it does mean a lot to me, and I think that for community-wide, it's a time that parents get to explain what it's for, and it's something that no matter what your background is, what your financial status is, where you live, it's something that as a whole we can enjoy together. And one thing I like about the firework, doing it together as a community like this, is it's something that, like, not every family can afford fireworks. You know, there's many families who barely make it, and so to spend more money for something, or some people don't have kids at home, so they just wonder why do it. And so we have about 20,000 people in our community. I'm fully in favor of funding or giving money to this, but personally, you know, with the amount of money that we do spend on things that just kind of are important but are here and gone, I think that 20,000 is about a buck a person for the community. And again, I know that the whole community, well, most of the community, find a spot, whether it's outside or in their backyard, around a barbecue, and get to have a time of celebration. It's something that everybody gets to enjoy. So it's definitely something that gets to be a benefit to everybody in the community, no matter where they are. So I would like it to go to 20,000, and whenever there's a moment, that's going to be my recommendation, my motion. But I'm fully in favor of this. It blesses the community. It's a great time. So it's just going to be a little bit longer if we do it, just a little bit longer of noise. But, you know, even if the fireworks is over, it's the ones that stay up late at night and that light off fireworks at 1 o'clock. They're the worst. So this isn't that. This is something that gets over at a reasonable hour. So that's my 2 cents.
Thank you. Looks like Councilman Riggs is next.
Thank you. When speaking with representatives at the Chamber of Commerce, I shared, you know, that Councilman Thompson brought this up, and during our initial conversation about this fund, and it's something that I really value as well, is the ability for them to use it as a matching gift. So when Councilwoman Goodson asked, how does that encourage other people to give if we form it in a frame, or if they leverage it in the frame of a matching gift, then that encourages additional giving from the community. So a matching gift performs in a way in such, if I donate $5, we'll match, and then that becomes $10. It's a way to encourage giving at all levels, and is actually statistically proven to inspire additional generosity. And so that was kind of my thought. And the $10,000 is, it doesn't put us in a position where we're covering it and now people don't have to participate. But it definitely puts us in a position where we're sure to have a good display, and the community can respond in kind and further that display to really make it a lovely evening. And categorically, I disagree with anything that wakes me up at night. It's not just fireworks.
All right, next up is Councilman Weber.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. So I was doing some research on like how much of a show you would get for 15,000, and Mr. May, you probably can help me with this because you're uniquely involved in this. So a $15,000 show, what does that get us? About 21 minutes or something like that?
Typically, they like to shoot for around 20 minutes, and frankly, what happens is sometimes beyond 20 minutes, you lose the audience, which that's their thought pattern. I don't agree, but the additional dollars typically we've used in the past to improve the size of the rockets. So even during the 20 minutes, you get the bigger 6 and 8 inch shells. One year we went to 10 inch shells, and we had, I think, half a dozen 10-inch shells, and I don't know if there's a big difference between the 8 and the 10s. The 10s create a bigger area of clearance. You have to have larger space, but adding more larger rockets is probably more valuable than distance and time of the event.
Okay, well, thank you for clarifying that. So, but it's a significant difference, like when you jump up from 15,000 to 20,000, then you
Oh,
get
yeah,
the
it
rockets.
does, yeah.
So,
Certainly.
and also, as far as the contribution from the public, I was thinking, like, if it was the council's desire to fund that account, we front load the account, and then we've got 15,000 in this account, or if Councilmember Thompson wants to put 20,000, and because I know it was a little kind of a slow roll to get some donations done over at the chamber, but if we were to fund it on the front load it, and then incentivize the public with maybe even perhaps giving them the opportunity as donors to come out on the tarmac and watch, some of the display. So I took the liberty of talking to our attorney, Mr. Huber, about that, and there's no legal reason why we couldn't do that, right?
No,
Yeah.
if you wanted to, you could
And
easily
then,
do that.
so as kind of like to incentivize our public and say, okay, look, and even going forward, if this becomes like us setting precedent to do this, and we say, okay, we're going to front load this account with this much money, and if you guys want this much of a display, give us, $10,000, and then that buys so many people access right under the tarmac, right by the fireworks boom, and gives them just that extra, buy-in as our citizens. So I'm actually in favor of what you just said. I'm in favor of funding it. I'm in favor of 20,000. I want to see this thing go big. And then next year, I would like to even start planning earlier in the year and do something like a full-on festival, with a band, DJ stage, food trucks, ice cream, the whole 9 yards. I would love to do that,
The one thing I'll comment.
Those things.
Yeah, I'll comment on is adding people onto the tarmac does create a little bit of a security problem because you don't want them in certain places, especially in view of the planes and whatnot. So it can be done. I'm not saying it can't be done, but you do have a security issue to make sure they stay where they're supposed to be, because there are certain diameter that you've got to keep clear zones around it. So, but that's just a matter of managing the situation. But it does create issues. So, all right.
We're going to have a large presence of law enforcement there anyway, so I'm sure we could assist with that.
Yeah, good. All right, Councilman Thompson again.
Yes, sir. Just briefly, I know we talked about incentivizing giving. So a good compromise, I think, would be to front load 10 and then use the other 10 for incentivizing people to give. So we give 10, and then the other 10 would be for a matching gift for the community of 10,000.
Yeah, that works too. Yeah. Councilman Riggs.
Then, sorry, this is now my work brain. Now the question becomes, normally you say you're going to give a matching gift, you're going to give the whole 10 either way. Are we truly going to act it in a matching capacity?
Matching capacity.
So if
10.
they raise $6,000, we'll give $6,000.
Correct.
All right.
There you go. Is that a motion?
I make a motion. Are we done? Or we have to have public comment, or?
Do we have any public comment on this?
Mr. Mayor, we do not have any public comment on this item.
Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion of giving 10,000 and then additionally making 10,000 available for a matching gift.
I'll second.
And just so that the motion is clear, so the matching gift would be dollar for dollar.
Dollar for dollar.
However
$1
much is
for
raised
$1.
by the public, then you match it
Up to 10,000.
From this point,
up to $10,000.
and we're going from this point forward, not on
Right,
money
not
that
on,
already
not
come
on
in.
back stuff, but from this point forward.
So any money already donated would,
Right, right. It's a thank you, because they gave it with the understanding of
Yeah.
their just donating.
Contributions, yeah.
but if we make available the tarmac for them to come out, would those donors still be able to come out? The original donors? If that's the,
I think we,
That sounds like something for
let's
the chamber to figure out.
let
Yeah.
the management of the lead agency take care of that. I think.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think that's a better idea.
yeah. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other questions on the motion? If not, I'll call for the roll, please.
Motion carries with 6 yeses and 1 recused.
All right. Thank you all. Now, we'll move on to item number 8. We'll call our councilman back in, please. Once he gets in here. We have item number 8, lowering of the speed limit around school zones. We have a request from 2 council members, consider the changing of speed limit in school zones.
Yeah, and I looked into this a little bit, and obviously it is the council is, they have the prerogative to make that change, should that be the council's desire to pass an ordinance by a resolution. Ultimately, we do have about 15, I think, schools. Don, I know we looked at it, roughly 15 schools within the city limits. An option could be to talk to all the schools and see which ones are, or if any of them are having any sort of speeding issues. Because ultimately, if the council wishes to go down this path, I'm guessing 10 signs, probably 8 to 10 signs around each school would need to be put up. So it could be a significant cost as well. So again, that's just some quick research on the topic.
Looks like Councilman Thompson is up.
That was from before.
That's before? All right, well, let's clear the queue real quick. We can do that. Okay, queue is cleared. Do we have Vice Mayor Smith?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So Councilman Weber and myself are the ones that asked for this to be placed on the agenda. The community, time and time again, hearing from them, there's a lot of concern about unsafe speeds in our community. And again, looking for ways to draw attention to that and to have our community a little more conscious about their behavior, I think is always a good thing. So just the discussion alone, I think, is positive. I think that it would be really wise to certainly interview or to get input from our local schools to identify first where those problems may exist. And then, in reading some of the recommendations from staff, it would seem prudent then to have the next level, which would be to, an engineering or a study or something to, I think, and that may even be required.
It's optional.
It is
for
optional.
that.
Okay, so that's the part I wasn't
Yeah.
totally clear on. So then perhaps once we identify that, then we could move forward. But time and time again, we hear from our constituents a lot of concern about speed. I know there's been several incidents with pedestrians, having collisions with automobiles, and there's been actually some fatalities in our town as well. And if, to my knowledge, I don't think it's involved any children at this point. But, I mean, they are our most precious commodity in our community, and to be proactive in consideration of the concerns that we continue to hear, I think that it's just prudent for us to at least look at this. And then just, I think, again, we're putting a sense of this is a value, this is important, and to have that conversation as a community. And I think that that's very, very important to do that, just given, and it's one of those situations where you don't know the tragedy you averted. Because, when nothing happens, then how do you quantify that? It's pretty difficult, but you can, I think safety is paramount, especially when it comes to our children. And I think that's a good conversation to have. So that's kind of my thoughts on it at this point. Obviously, this is going to be ongoing and develop. I'm sure that we'll have our community weigh in and give their opinion as well. But this is, I think, a place to start. Thank you.
Councilman Weber is on the queue next.
No,
Oh, Thompson, excuse me.
no worries. I am absolutely in support of this, and the life of one child. No, as parents or grandparents, the thought of losing a child because of an irresponsible driver. Not only am I in favor of the signs and the change of speed, but if there's a specific school that's reporting problems in flashing signs and speed bumps to boot, so that it makes it really uncomfortable for cars going through the area just to fly through it. So whatever we can do that would help deter Because I think if somebody's being irresponsible and driving fast in the school zone, especially when kids are there, I'm not necessarily sure if just a sign posted with a different number is going to make a huge difference, but a speed bump might.
Yeah, and I know I learned today, and Don can probably elaborate on this, but I know that the city does have it's a program for when there are concerns raised about vehicles traveling too fast, that we partner and we do an assessment on it, and I'll let Don elaborate on that.
It's a traffic calming program that our engineering division has developed in the last 3 years. And for neighborhoods, like we've had a request from the neighbors on the Fifth Avenue corridor, where there's a lot of residential homes, but people travel at a high rate of speed in that area. So pulling together petitions from them, what their concerns are, and then our engineering team will go out, do an evaluation, and recommend or provide recommendation as to the traffic calming measures that would meet that location. So it's a program like that. So we could talk with the schools, work with them, provide them with that documentation, and see what their concerns are if they do have excessive speeders in those locations, and how we can work through those issues.
Councilman Weber.
Yeah, thank you. So years ago, when Maria and I moved to Nevada, and one of the first things we encountered when we moved there was that they had 15-mile-an-hour school zones. And it struck me because 15 mile an hour is very, very slow. But I'll tell you what, it was very safe, very safe. And what they did to enforce it is they would have police officers that would be stationed, near that school zone. And the school zone was only operational during certain periods of the day. And it was incredibly effective, like super effective in keeping the traffic slowed down. And what it would also do is keep the traffic flowing through the school zone at a very measured pace the whole time, so they wouldn't get clogged up or bogged down. Now, I've got 2 students over at Oroville High School. Matter of fact, I was on the phone with Chief Lagrone the other day, and I'm waiting in line to pick up my daughters, and some lady that comes through is like driving like a maniac, jumps the curb, runs the stop sign, cuts people off, and just drives like a complete fool all the way down the road. Remember, I was on the phone with you. I'm like, man, where are you at when I need you? So I see that stuff all the time. And I drop my son off at Nelson. I see it all the time, blowing stop signs. Maria and I live right down here on Bird Street, and the Catholic school's right by our house. And they're dropping off in the morning, they're picking up in the afternoon. People blowing the stop signs, blowing through town, going down Montgomery, cutting people off. It's crazy. So not only is it a way to slow people down, but it's a way to protect our children. And I think it's incredibly valuable, having lived in Nevada and actually seen it in action. It works very well. And then I spoke with Chief Lagrone too, and he, of course, is ramping up with the police department with radar, LiDAR certification with his officers. And he said that he'd be, more than willing to enforce. So I think it would be a great idea for us to do this for the protection and well-being of our citizens.
Councilman Riggs.
Thank you. Anecdotally, I'll share that from my living room on lunch break, I could see the 4-way stop near Oroville High School. And it raises my blood pressure every day watching people blow through that stop sign. And it happens more so when the students are on lunch break.
Yeah.
But I would share, and you alluded to it, and several other council members have mentioned it, but the traffic calming measures and increased enforcement can truly make a difference. They know what the law is. They know it's 25, or is it 20?
25.
All right, good. They know it's 25, and they do not care. One needs to be persuaded to care, and the 2 ways you could do that is make it uncomfortable to not follow that law by speed bumps, et cetera, or the other way would be enforcement. And so I think that categorically only doing a change in law and new signs with 15 miles per hour, I don't think that's going to get us to our desired spot. So I really appreciate the sentiment that this is a starting point, But really, we do need that comprehensive evaluation to look at which areas are most effective and what holistic approach can we take to address those concerns.
Councilman Thompson.
Thank you. So just popping, I know this isn't too far off from this one, but since it's already mentioned, the Fifth Avenue corridor, the amount of speed traffic there, I would be in favor of huge speed bumps there. I know that there's, at least there was, I'm not sure if it still is, a major use of that corridor by DMV for large trucks. So maybe some speed bumps would deter them from blowing through and going through that area as much as they are now, or less than they are now. But I know speeding around Fifth Avenue is a huge problem as well. So whatever we can do to help make things more safe. I mean, nobody likes speed bumps, big speed bumps. Absolutely not.
Okay, Councilman Weber again.
Yeah, you know,
It's fine.
when I was campaigning, that was a huge bone of contention for all those residents along Fifth Avenue there. And matter of fact, while I was talking to a guy on his front porch, he's telling me how terrible it is, and a high-speed police chase goes right behind us. Dude's going like 90 miles an hour with 2 OPD right on his bumper, and he's like, "Well, there you go, right there." And so I think that's well worth looking into. I think, you know, that's obviously my district, and those are my constituents, and I would love to get the traffic slowed down however we could right through Fifth there. And secondly, I also wanted to say this earlier. Maria and I just visited her brother the other day, and we were in, I think it's town's called Sutter or something like that. And there was a speed limit flash sign that was on the side of the road, and it illuminated, lit up, and it was flashing red and blue lights. And man, it was effective. Like I was like, because it looked just like a cop car, but it was a sign. But immediately, I was going the speed limit, but somebody else is speeding, right? But immediately it lit up, and we could get stuff like that too. That would help a lot. So,
Thank you, Councilman Goodson.
I was just thinking, you know, we've had this conversation multiple times, multiple councils. And one of the things that, and I believe it was Chief Lagrone, we had started out with rumble strips. And then if there was a need for road, for the bumps, and I know that there's a huge cost difference as well, but I just wanted to ask Chief Lagrone to weigh in on that. What's the most effective, rumble strips and/or the bumps?
I'm not a proponent of either one.
All right.
You know, I understand the necessity of it, what people hope they will do, but then on the other side of it too, it's not a solution to the problem. As I look at this and see this, you know, if you're going to do it, to me, it makes very little sense to do it at one school and not another. I mean, because the idea would be to educate folks that when you're in a school zone, regardless of where it's at, it's 15 miles an hour. I mean, so I think that if you're going to do it, you should go full boat on it. The signs should be radar. They should report your speed back to you, because normal people want to follow the law. And sometimes we all are guilty of not necessarily paying as close attention as we should to what our speed is, and it creeps up on us. And I know when I see my speed in one of those signs, you know, I slow down because I'm trying to follow the law. I mean, so that would make sense to me to do something like that. I also think the sign should be something of an electronic nature that changes. I mean, if you want to do 15 miles an hour when school is in session and 25 after school hours, that would make sense. I mean, but don't put up a sign that says 15 miles an hour when children are present. Because I drive through and I go, well, when the heck are children present? If I don't see them, I don't know when they're here. I mean, because my youngest is over 30 years old, so, you know, they're not in elementary school any longer. So, I mean, I think that's good information to give our drivers, because I think most people really try to follow the rules of the road. You do have those folks out there that don't. I mean, so the more information that we can feed back to people to get them to comply voluntarily is where we're really going to achieve success. I mean, I just never have been what have the speed bumps actually done on Spencer? I don't think a whole lot. I mean, to really be honest, they just speed between the speed bumps now. What we need to do, and I'm happy to report back to you, is that we are getting our staffing to a point where we may be able to roll out someone to specifically address that. I mean, by the end of this year, we should be within one of our allocated personnel for police officers. I mean, so we are running up on the number that you've given us, and we are going to have them out there. So I think we can have more serious conversations about that. Then I think that's going to be a more effective tool. But I think if we get into these things, we should probably be consistent, I mean, with all of our schools, and then also make sure that we have proper ways of educating people, on the spot education. Boom, the sign comes on, too fast. I mean, or 30, it starts blinking and things like that. So maybe I'm not normal, but when I see that, it makes me slow down.
Deterrent.
Yeah.
Thank
that's
you,
helpful.
Chief. Appreciate that.
I'm going to weigh in real quick. When you talked about the radar signs that tell you what you're going, there's one out on Los Plumas, going to Los Plumas High School. And that's pretty effective because it lets you know and reminds you that speed and the
40
effectiveness
miles
of
an
that. Yeah, I mean, it just tells you real quick. So that's a good one. I like the idea of rumble strips, just because in certain areas, that's the only way you're going to slow them down. Somewhere, certain situations. The other question I want to throw out there is we had a complaint over here on Longbar Road of speeding going on, and the problem there is the streets or the speed limit signs have been stolen. So when there's no sign, it's not posted, what is the speed limit? Maybe the city attorney can tell us.
Prima facie speed in a residential area is 25 miles per hour.
Okay.
It's not.
So that's a given based upon our knowledge. That is there, does the vehicle code speak about that?
Yeah, in fact, the vehicle code, section 22-352, to quote the chief, prima facie speed limit is 25 miles per hour in a business and residential district, if there's no signage.
It's in the handbook.
Yeah. Somewhere it's probably a test question. Councilman Weber, go ahead.
Yeah, the radar is incredibly effective. And then when I was also campaigning, I was asking the same constituents because all along Montgomery, Pomona, Fifth, that was the major concern because those are kind of like highways, right? Or at least they're used like they are. And I asked them, what do you think about stop signs, rumble strips, speed bumps? And I'll tell you right now, unilaterally, everybody was like, no rumble strips. They're way too noisy when they hit them. And so that would be a huge concern for me. And then my last thing about when we moved to Nevada, when we first got there, it was kind of like a shock. I was like, 15 miles an hour, this is weird. But then I got to really, really appreciate it and then just automatically just slow down because then I understood the value of it. So there would be a acclimation period that would have to, I'm sure people would throw a fit. But if I know firsthand what it looked like when we got acclimated to it and used to it and the value of it. So just my 2 cents on that.
Okay. Councilman Johnstone.
Thank you. I 100% agree with Chief LaGrone about the automatic signs where during school session or when children are present, 15 miles an hour. I think people are going to complain no matter what we do. So we need to just take it upon ourselves to put safety first for our children and for our family and community, not just our children, but the adults, teachers, principals, all of the administration too. They are at that school as well. So I'm 100% in favor of this. I think that anything that we can do to be proactive to keep our children and our community members safe is a no-brainer on that. I like the idea of speed bumps as well as the 15-mile-an-hour zone. So I don't know what the cost is on that, and I'm glad that we're talking about this. But I think double duty on that would be something that we would want to look into. Thank you.
Okay. Vice Mayor Smith.
That's why you're the chief, Bill. You made a lot of sense. Consistency, I think that's a huge thing. So I rescind my earlier comment about interviewing the school. I think if we're going to do this, I think that makes a whole lot of sense. But not just public, but also the private schools as well, as we have some significant private schools here locally that I think that would be deserving, because this is about public safety ultimately. So, and I think what we're looking for is some direction. So we need to identify the cost. And if we go with that, better type of signage, and then right away I think, well, who's going to control that? Are we going to, have to program that with the school schedule? That makes a lot of sense too. I can't think of anything more tragic other than somebody just being, somebody breaking the law. They're just going to break the law and they're going to go up and over and do crazy things. Regardless, that becomes a criminal activity. But I think the vast majority of us who, like you stated, we want to obey the law, and there's times when you're distracted, you're thinking, and you're just, oh my goodness. Now, I can't think of anything more tragic than someone that's, the typical person just wants to follow the law and then inadvertently hits a child. I mean, and so this, again, I think it's putting an emphasis on the value of, the most precious commodity we have as a community, which is, our children. And then it's a reminder, it's a help for all of us. So ultimately, we have to know what that's going to cost, and then who's going to manage that, because if we're posting different times, you have different school schedules, half days, there's a lot of dynamics there. And then obviously, different districts are going to have different calendars and schedules and stuff. So right away, my mind goes to management, because I'm a manager. So I think there are some critical infrastructural questions that would probably need to be answered, but ultimately, cost and what that program would look like.
Mr. Vice Mayor, if I could, I think that I know somebody on one of the school boards that can probably assist with this, and I believe that it would be probably a good idea of this council to partner with the school districts. And because, I know there is several piles of money that have been made available because of COVID and things like that are currently available in the school districts where they can help contribute to the cost of what this signage would be. And I would even suggest that their IT people manage them. Because they know where their districts are, they know what their schedules are. They would be the ones that would be responsible for making sure that these things are, we'd have to make sure they're functioning appropriately and things like that, but they could do any changes that were necessary. So I think it would probably be appropriate, with your direction, that we approach the school districts and see what they can do to contribute to this and what their input would be as far as, financially, what would you like to contribute?
Hey,
Was that a recommendation for us to recommend?
I think that's.
I'm good with that. I like what I just heard.
I think what we're doing is we're getting a number of directions for staff to work on. I think there's quite a list there.
Want me to try to summarize them?
Yeah, why don't you go ahead real quick?
Let's try to summarize. Reach out to schools to see, obviously, get some input from them on seeing if they're interested in partnering with the city on paying for speed signs and managing them, getting cost information, and getting numbers on the numbers of signs actually going into a school.
Yeah.
That would be for all schools, correct?
Yeah, all the city schools. Councilman Goodson.
Right, I was just thinking in terms of, you had mentioned the possibility of partnering with the schools, but there's actually some cities where, so we know the basic installation of a speed bump is about $4,000, $5,000, something like that. And partnering with the schools and residents in regards to the maintenance and the installation. So look at if the residents can afford $25 a year for maintenance. Maintenance costs.
Well, we have, I would say we have two programs here. We have the traffic calming policy from staff, and then we have the outreach to the schools. I think if we put it all together, we can come up with some kind of a reasonable plan, plus cost figures. I mean, as the chief mentions, the radar signs, speed signs, I think are probably one of the best valuable things, especially if they have lights up and, shock you with blinking lights or something like that. I know we had for years an issue at the Stanford Avenue School, the crossing down at the bottom of the hill on Ore Dam. And we finally got the signs there for the kids to walk safely across that street. It took a while to get there. I mean, it just did. And the same thing on Orange Avenue. If we put one of those radar signs on Orange Avenue, I'm going to dedicate it to Alan Simpson, because he was so much on top of us all about the speeds on Orange Avenue. I mean, I can't remember our council meeting, he didn't bring it up. So If not, he was standing out there on the road directing people, you slow down, so, I could still see him up there pointing at me right off the bat, so. I think we have fair direction. Any other comments on this topic? Staff's got a list there to go for. All right. Thank you all. And we don't have any public comments on this one.
Mr. Mayor, we do not have any public comments on this item.
Then we'll move forward to item number 9, which is the cancellation of the July 5th, 2023 regularly scheduled city council meeting.
Yes, I just wanted to put this on the agenda to see if there was an interest. I know many jurisdictions do take the first meeting off the month of July. Our city code currently requires our meetings to be on the first and third Tuesdays. However, if it falls on a holiday, then it defaults back to the Wednesday, which happened this year. The 4th of July is on a Tuesday, so the council meeting is currently scheduled for Wednesday, July 5th. And just if there was a desire for the council to cancel that meeting, I'd have reached out to staff. They'll feel that they can, if any items of importance can get on the next meeting here in June, if there is a desire. If there's a desire to keep it, that's fine too, but just wanted to bring that to your attention and make it an option of the council.
Do we have any public comment on this?
Mr. Mayor, I do not have any public comment on this item.
Councilman Riggs.
I thought that when we approved our calendar that we had already canceled this one. No. Well, I'm in favor. I'll be up late for the fireworks.
Is that a
It
motion?
is a motion. I motion that
All
we
right, the
cancel that.
motion is seconded. We'll call a roll call vote just to give clear direction, if we can, real quick.
So the motion is
Cancel it, yes.
And to have the meeting on Wednesday, July 5th?
No.
Or
No,
Just,
cancel it. Next,
just-
just have one meeting in July.
okay. I'm good.
Okay.
So the meeting would be, the only meeting in July would be on July, I believe, 18th then.
Sure.
Okay.
Motion carries with 7 yeses and 0 nos.
Thank you all.
Happy 4th, guys.
All right, item number 10, this is a short one. Fiscal year 2023-24 preliminary budget. Ruth, welcome.
Save the best for last, right? Good evening, Mayor Pittman, Vice Mayor Smith, and council members. It is my pleasure to bring to you the 23-24 preliminary budget. A lot of hours go into this and a lot of coordinated effort, so I just want to thank everybody, all the staff and department heads and city administrator that helped me prepare this. It's always, I'm always going to say our budget, it's never my budget, it's everybody helps to bring this together. So it was a challenge this year. I know I've mentioned it before, but have been spending 2 days a week implementing new software. So finding time for the budget was a challenge this year, but we got it done. I was reflecting this morning on all the budgets. This is my 8th budget here at the city, so I'm excited about getting another one done. But I've been through it all. I've been through deficits and how to cut the budget. I've been through what are we going to do with a surplus. And I really feel like this year it was very much just a tight budget. It was just like the revenues were kind of stagnant, not expecting a lot because this year doesn't really look like a lot's going on. And then just the continual rising cost in everything. It was a challenge. So I did get it balanced in the general fund, but I would say, you know, what keeps causing our surpluses? Because I know I come to you every year and we have a surplus, we have, you know, this year ended with another surplus. And so, you know, I know we've brought up vacancies. So I had a conversation with the police chief because, not to pick on him, but he has the biggest department. And I said, how many vacancies do you have right now? And he said 10. I said, what are the chances that you're going to fill them all this year? And he said, not very likely. He said, I get 3, I lose 4, I get 4, I lose 3. So that in itself is causing a very large discrepancy. I mean, I feel like I've prepared a very, very tight budget, you know, revenues equal the expenditures, but then we end up with a surplus at the end of the year. And so I just want you to be aware of that we are budgeting every dollar, but I keep coming to you with surpluses right now. And that should end sometime when we get fully staffed and when the expenditures just keep rising. I think we need to just think long-term and think about the sustainability of our budget. And with all that in mind, we prepared this budget. So talked about the vacancies. I'll just start with my staff report because that's where I did some major highlights. And just for the new people, I want you to know that the general fund and the district tax fund are both the general fund. So as far as legality and financial reporting, they are combined. But I have them separately stated because I have an oversight committee board that I have to answer to. What are the revenues? What are the expenditures? So we budget them separately, but for all intents and purposes, they are the same general fund.
Real quick, just to, for the rest of the council members, the Oversight Committee Board is, just for definition.
The Citizens Oversight Committee is an oversight of our 1% sales tax that was passed in 2018. And we started collecting revenues in 2019. And it is a general sales tax, so, you know, it can be spent for anything, but it was sold to our public as a public safety tax. So we tried to hold true to that when we're budgeting for it and keep it only to public safety expenditures.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So, as I already stated, for the revenues, they just looked really stagnant. It is very interesting that our district tax sales tax far surpasses our general fund sales tax. So that means we're capturing a lot of, out of our jurisdiction, we're capturing a lot of sales tax. And they expect, we do use sales tax consultants, and they did say that to expect a little increase there, but not so much in the general fund. So that was just kind of the overall revenue, feeling of revenues is just, we're just starting to feel the economic slowdown and just kind of flatline. It'd be great if it doesn't come true, but that's how we had to budget. So for expenditures, I already mentioned the vacancies and the challenge that is. I did attend a conference a couple weeks ago, and I attended a whole session on the hiring crisis. It is a nationwide crisis. I didn't really know that. I didn't know that it was so far-reaching, but I heard about Tennessee, and I heard about Florida and all the problems that they're having hiring, and it just kind of came to my mind. You have, in real estate, you have a seller's market and a buyer's market. It's like right now I feel like we have an employee's market because they told me the only way you can fill your vacancies is to steal people. So they said, go home and start stealing people. But that's interesting because then you have to be very competitive with the pay, and it is definitely a nationwide crisis right now. And I saw some really interesting graphs where they had the death rate of over 65 going like this, and then the birth rate going like this. I don't know how much that has to do with it, but it's something that definitely another topic. So vacancies was a very large challenge in the budget because I have to put them in there. I have to put them, every position that we have, I have to put in there and expect to pay it just in case. But I think we will be expecting some savings from vacancies. The next biggest challenge was our fire contract. So we have a fire contract with CAL FIRE, and it is approximately $4.9 million a year for 3 years. And we have to budget for that because that could be it. But they told us right from the beginning, that's top step. That's all of the positions that we're going to provide to you at top step. I'm projecting that's going to come in at $4.1 million. So that's like a $800,000 savings. And I got to that number because we have been charged for 3 quarters. And the last quarter that we paid for was just over $1 million. So I have no reason to expect any large changes for the next quarter. I mean, I know they probably could be busier in the fire season and whatnot, but I really think there's going to be a lot of savings in that contract too. But again, I have to put it in the budget at the full contract amount because they could potentially get everybody at top step. So anyway, those are 2 big contributors to me trying to balance a budget, but knowing that there's going to be savings in there. So just wanted to kind of illustrate that for you. So just kind of some little things that we did in the budget. We did combine our streets and drainage departments. We didn't feel like we needed them separate anymore. I know I asked you during the year if we could combine the capital projects and capital improvements funds. We did that, just kind of any place that we can just be more efficient, we tried to do that. I did include a branding estimate of 71,000. I don't know where I got that number, but it was
From another city.
I wanted to make sure we had something in there. I was going to tell you when you were talking about the community enhancement funds, you have $20,000 through the end of June. So you've got to have another 20,000 starting July 1st. But if you don't spend that 20,000 through the end of June, it goes away, and you have another allotment of 20,000 for the next year. So if you have any ideas for the next agenda, I would get them on there because you have until June 30th to spend the whole 20,000.
Or we could save it to next year.
Yeah, but I only have 20,000 for next year, so.
Well, what I'm saying is it would roll over and
So
be
it
general
does
purpose
roll
revenue
over.
next year if it's not spent this year.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're going to have a really great fireworks show, I think. So, other significant changes was council approved 2 new department heads. We are recruiting for 3, but we had the community development director already in the budget last year. So only the public works director and the assistant police chief were the new ones to add, and we added both of those to the district tax fund. So as far as cost increases, I know you guys all buy gas, and so that's just an obvious one. Gas went up, but our insurance costs went up 16%. And every year it goes up a significant amount. So if you put that all together, it's a large amount of money. Medical insurance costs for our employees that gets passed on to them is like in the 15% range right now. So I know that's going to be an issue that we really have to just talk about when we're doing negotiations. The PERS normal rate went up 2%. That's not huge, but every year if it's 2-3%, just if your revenues aren't growing and all these are growing, then we're going to have a problem down the road. We are in the process of doing a comp study, so we try to evaluate that and incorporate that in the budget. But just supplies and materials and fuel and everything's gone up. So I want to talk to you next about the district tax fund. I just said that the directors, the public works director and the assistant police chief went in the district tax fund. That caused a huge allocation change in the general fund because the community development director was handling all of the public works. So it changed the allocation quite a bit in the general fund as well because the community development director was 100% in the general fund. And so now we have the public works director and the district tax fund. It just changed in allocation a lot. So if you see some weird changes, it's because of that. So in the district tax fund, we added an administrative assistant for fire. It came up that nobody was available to do their accounts payable processing and just the general admin things that need to be done for fire. So we allocated a portion, a 0.2 position to help them with their admin needs. So if you see fire expenses in the district tax fund, it's just for a new admin, it's a new position.
But it's not, correct me if I'm wrong, Ruth, it's not a new position. It's duties that we are having other individuals perform those duties and they'll be charged. So it's a reallocation of responsibilities, correct?
Yeah. So the big topic in the district tax fund is we do several large transfers in there. In the past, we've done 1.5 million for general fund reserves. We've done 1.5 million for capital asset replacements, and we've done 1.5 million to the capital projects fund. So in speaking with our new city administrator, we decided to change that this year. And so the thought was, we have these assets, so say we buy police cars. We know in 7 years we need new police cars. So we want to establish a capital asset replacement reserve that is there for when the assets that we have expire. And that's something we have not done since I've been here because there was no money and nobody basically got anything. So now that we have the district tax fund and 1.5 million a year, we've been addressing all of the delayed and deferred replacements of assets. So we kind of want to stop that now. We want to shift. We want to put enough in there to cover everything that's been approved and requested through now. But we wanted to establish a 1.5 million reserve for capital assets to start funding the funds that they're to replace the assets that we have so that there's a place to go when these cars expire and things like that. So we decided to reallocate the 1.5 general fund reserve to a new capital asset reserve. And I know when we presented this to the Oversight Committee last week, they kind of didn't really like this idea, and I'll share with you their recommendations later, but they said, well, we like that general fund reserve, and it's a nice cushion to know that we have that in case in times of need. And I also attended a session at my conference regarding general fund reserves and risk and uncertainty, and they recommended that every city's different. They recommended that you have a general fund reserve range and you determine yourself what it is. But if you're a high-risk city, you should have no more than 35%. And right now, we're at 28%. So we're right there. We're at the higher end of our reserve. They said that if you had more than 35%, there's a tipping point from where you're just, collecting assets and not providing services to your community. So we felt like that was probably in line with what we did and discontinuing the general fund reserve transfer. And so just for your information, the general fund reserve right now is $9 million. So that's pretty good, and that's pretty healthy. And the 35% was for high-risk cities that had risky things coming down the pike. So I felt comfortable with that change, and hope you do too. So I will tell you that was one thing that the Oversight Committee said is we like the general fund reserve. We recommend you keep it. And their other recommendation was for you to consider security, and not armed security, but security because they felt that even having the presence of people around in a uniform would help the safety of our community. So those were the two recommendations from the Oversight Committee regarding the budget. And we have two council members that were on that committee. And if they wish to speak on that.
Go ahead, Jenna.
No, you were spot on. We had talked
Okay.
about it earlier, so you knew exactly what to speak to.
Yeah.
And
Okay,
And
so.
let me
and
add
there-
too, that one of the things that they said is they'd like to see the appearance of in the city parks and the
City
city
parks.
properties more often than not. And I know we added some positions to the MLE program. I don't know if are we completely filled those positions at the MLE, the 8 that we added?
No, we have not. We're filling them, and as we fill them, we are also taking from them to put them through the academy and becoming police officers. So we are filling them, but they are not completely up to capacity yet.
So, and the message from the Oversight Committee was, it'd be nice if, those were filled, and then there's more patrol of the city parks in particular. And/or if there's an interim need, they even suggested, some kind of other alternate security if that's necessary. I know I get calls about some of the parks from the neighbors, and I've relayed them to the police department, and I know the sergeants, but that was a big deal for the Oversight Committee as a recommendation to add more police presence. I wanted to use the word, I couldn't think of the word, but presence, and that was a big topic, along with the other expenditures they were very happy with, but that was their suggestions for what they hear from the community, and the delivery of service is a big deal. So if you find a way to have more presence in those places, it'd be great. I don't know if your patrol hours with the MLEs go beyond a certain time at night, or
Is it 10 o'clock?
is there a
It's typically 6 a.m. to 10 p.m.
6 to 10?
10
Yeah.
p.m.
Those, probably one day it'd be nice to bring a presentation to the Oversight Committee so they understand your MLE program in detail would be good. 'Cause
Yes, sir.
there was a lot of questions about it, and it really wasn't fair for us to answer. We don't really know. I mean,
Right, we just superficial
Yeah.
knowledge.
Good, thank you. Vice Mayor Smith is on the queue. Would you?
Okay.
Yeah, just a couple comments on the hiring level. So I think on the CAL FIRE, if I remember correctly, that during high fire season, there's actually a potential for additional revenues because of then they would contract with us to provide additional services. So I'm just saying there might be a kind of a counterbalance to additional cost because of OT and that type of thing. So kind of that's a two-edged sword, if you will, potentially.
It's only for equipment. You don't get anything for personnel.
Yeah, but I mean, there is a potential for some revenue come back on that. Maybe not enough to completely deal with all of
Cover
it,
it,
but
yeah.
there is some there. And then on the MLE piece, I think just observing and being on the Measure U committee and just the height and interest of that area. With the MLEs, I think that one of the big, as I remember it, Chief Lagon can weigh in on this, because we had discussed the private security, and then I think as a council, we decided to go more of a direction of bolstering the MLE program and then using that as a funnel into full law enforcement. And so I was just kind of curious, since that did come up, and there's some concern about our hiring levels and meeting those budgetary available slots to be filled. Where are we at? How is that working? Because I think 3 or 4 months ago, I don't remember exactly when we had that discussion, but it hasn't been that long ago. So just the process of moving MLEs into the academy and then backfilling again with additional. So we kind of like homegrown, so
Correct.
to speak. That's what I remember.
No, it is working. I can tell you that right now we currently have 7 vacancies. We have 2 MLEs that are currently in the academy. They'll be graduating this Friday in Paradise at the Performance Arts Center, so we'll be down to having 5 vacancies. We have 2 more MLEs that are going to the academy in July. One of our MLEs has just about he's going to a medical physical tomorrow. Once that's done, he will be transitioning to a police officer, so that will take us down to 2 vacancies. We have another MLE that is completing the process right now. That will take us down to 1 vacancy. So potentially by the end of the year, we may be one of the only police departments in the North State that turns off our vacancy sign.
Wow, good
I mean,
job.
and the MLE program is working. It's doing exactly what we wanted it to do. The problem with it, I guess the weak side of it is that when you get the folks in there, you get them trained up, and you get them into that position, you immediately harvest them. And so now all of a sudden the MLE side is lacking again. I mean, so that's, so we are harvesting from there quite a bit, but we are getting good quality candidates from our community. There's a lot of kids out there that are interested in this. I shouldn't say kids, young people that are exploring careers and want to look into this. So, it's been a very good program. I mean, that's, I'd be really proud to say that our vacancy sign is off.
Great.
Councilman Weber, do you have a question?
Yeah, thank you. So it sounds like things are on the upswing from a year ago in your department, and that's awesome. So I automatically have a question, and this is a question for Mr. Huber. Is it normal for the Oversight Committee to give council direction or recommendations?
It's a recommendation.
Yeah, that's actually one of their roles is to give recommendations, is to take a look at what's going on and to give recommendations to the council. Council can do what they want with recommendations, but that actually is one of their roles, is to give recommendations.
Okay, good. Thank you for clarifying that, because I wasn't sure on that.
It needs to be within the subject matter jurisdiction that they operate in, which this one is. But for example, they couldn't give you advice on something that has nothing to do with that committee. But yeah, it's within the subject matter jurisdiction. That is their role, is to just give you their thoughts, their opinions, their recommendations.
Okay, thank you.
I would also add at that committee, one of the discussions we had is the MLEs doing the early morning sweeps of businesses has been very effective for a number of businesses. In fact, 2 businesses reported the fact that they have not had a problem with that problem population is what I'll call it. So kudos to the MLEs that are out early sweeping the businesses, the front doors, the places, so the employees, when they come to work, they're not having to remove that occupation. So that was positive comment, and that's one of the great things about the Oversight Committee. They can provide us that input, so that's a good thing. Thank you.
So I wanted to wrap up with the fun part. So on March 28th, we had a really awesome budget workshops with goals and priorities. And so part of preparing the budget was looking at your goals and priorities and making sure they were in the budget. So this is the part that I'd like to speak to. So one of the biggest priorities was road repairs, and we have over $5 million available this year for road repairs. And from what I'm hearing, we have some big projects coming, and it's going to get spent. So that's awesome. We already talked about staffing and recruiting and training. Obviously, our goal is to be fully staffed. I hope that we do turn the vacancy sign off someday, and that would be awesome. But there was also discussions about recruitment and retention, and so it's a big discussion that we need to continually keep having. And also, you'll be seeing the compensation study pretty soon too. So the third one was customer service, and this feedback was really important to us because I feel like customer service is really important. Even in my department, I want other departments to say that they were treated fairly or had good customer service from my department. And so I went to Brian when he first got here, and I said, I'd like some customer service training in my department. And he knew somebody. We had some contacts at Butte College, and so we're working on that. We plan to do some customer service training with all staff in the coming year. So that's really exciting. I feel like people know if you answer the phone, they know if you're smiling or not. So anyway, that's just really important to me, as well as everybody. And the last one was fire equipment. So very happy to say that we wrote the check for $1.2 million and change for a fire truck that we'll see in 2 to 3 years. But anyway, it was, you said to make it happen, and we did. So that was pretty exciting. Anyway, that was just a fun exercise, the workshop, and I wanted to make sure that you knew we incorporated it in the budget. So I will take any questions. In 2 weeks, you'll be getting the adopted budget, so if you did have any direction or changes, I'll be happy to make them for the adopted budget.
Councilman Johnstone.
Just a clarification, you said that we had $9 million in reserve in the general fund?
Yes.
After our budget is met?
Yes, so it will be $9 million at the end of this fiscal year. So the 1.5 from this year will make it 9.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
No, but I always like to remind everyone of our unfunded liabilities. That's just my thing, and we're at,
So it was so cool preparing the budget this year because our unfunded liability was $32,000. And that was it. But that's because we issued the $18 million in pension obligation bonds. But still, it was really exciting to not get a bill from CalPERS, or at least one that we could pay. The bad news is
Yes,
that
the bad news.
the bad news is that within 1 year we went in over $11 million. So it's going to take a while for that to affect our budget. We will get that bill next year. They aren't going to ask for the whole $11 million. They actually amortize it over 20 years. So keep your fingers crossed that they do better with their investments and we don't end up having to pay all that 11.4 million. But they were quick at the conference. I walked up to a booth and they said, "Oh, City of Oroville, $11.4 million." I'm like, "Yeah, I know." We told the council back in January what it was. So it hasn't come to us yet. It is not in this budget. All we did was the pension obligation bonds and $32,000 for the unfunded liability. But next year, not sure what that's going to look like. We're going to get that bill in August for next year.
Right, thank you.
Yeah, the legislature kills us on that when they put restrictions on the investment portfolio.
Yeah.
They know not what they do. They just don't know what they do.
You know, even if they lose
They're
7%, it's more like 13% because they're expecting 6 or something like that.
Right.
It's just way more impact than just what it is.
Quick
So-
question, your conference is up in Oregon. Does Oregon have the same problem with their employees?
Yeah, there was an Oregon slide on the problem, although they said that they had 30,000 students getting out of school for the summer and about 8,000 jobs. So that was an interesting dynamic that they had a season that they would actually have more students looking for jobs than there were jobs. So there's a lot of interesting facts.
Vice Mayor Smith.
Yeah, thank you. I'd just be remiss if I didn't make this statement. So, quality customer service does not always equate into good, quality, effective customer satisfaction. And so we can, and I'm applauding the training. That's great. We can have the smiles and the name tags and all of that at the front desk. But if we're not effectively and efficiently moving our constituents' needs along through our process, and at the end of the day, they're still going to be grumpy. So anyway, just had to say that on customer service.
And sometimes they're just going to be grumpy no matter what.
All right. Any other questions? Thank you, Ruth. Very good. We appreciate
Thank you,
that.
Ruth.
It seems like a thank you isn't adequate, though, for all the work you've done, but that's all we can.
Yeah, if I
get
can,
through.
I want to give a shout out to Carolyn. She's my editor, and she found a typo, but I wasn't going to admit it to anybody. But it will be fixed in the next one. So.
All right.
She
good
couldn't
deal.
be here tonight.
Thank you. All right. Next item is public communication. Here, do we have any non-agenda items? We do this at the beginning of the meeting, we do it at the end of the meeting. Anybody else have a?
Mayor, I do not have any blue speaker cards for this.
Okay, thank you. Next is the reports, discussions, and correspondence, council announcements and reports. Any councilman have any reports to provide? I'll throw one out real quick while we're considering that. The Oroville Citizens Advisory Committee had a meeting, and on Friday, we went through the Oroville Dam Powerhouse as a tour. Been through there many times myself personally, but it was nice to see that they're taking good care of the facilities in the powerhouse, which is deep underground, and there's a valve replacement going on for the river valve, so very interesting. We sit on that board, and we talk about a lot of things that some of us don't even know about, and it's mostly there to provide the agencies the understanding, the confidence that the powerhouse is being kept in good order, and then the components are taken care of very well, and it was a good tour. Eric, you were there. Anything else to add to that?
No, it was very impressive. I would certainly appreciate the opportunity from DWR to be able to tour that facility. It was very reminiscent of when I worked at Lockheed Missile and Space around Trident nuclear missiles. I got the same sense of ominous, of just the size and the grandeur of the facility. And I have to say that, it's an older facility, but it's well maintained. And that does give us a level of confidence. Yeah.
I just wish that the security didn't prevent the public access and tours. And when we were grade school around here, we all got to go up there for a tour of the powerhouse, and it wasn't that big a deal. Now, you have to have identification, you have to have background checks before you ever enter the facility. So I wish that could return back to some level of normalcy. Councilman Riggs.
Thanks. I was going to share, a few months ago, I was assigned to the Library Ad Hoc Committee, and that committee ended last week. You'll be hearing from the Board of Supervisors on the made a recommendation to the board for action to be taken. I won't spoil it. But I did learn a number of really valuable things about our library, and I thought that it would be really beneficial to have the librarian come and give a presentation about the services offered within the library, because really, many of us think of the library as a place to go and check out books. However, they operate a number of programs that really provide a social benefit to our entire community. I think that some education around that would be beneficial.
Good, thank you.
That's my request.
Councilman Weber's next up.
Yeah, thank you very much. I want to just give a public shout out from up here to all of our service providers in town. Code enforcement, I see you guys everywhere. You guys are just going for it, doing a great job. You know, your guys are out there every day. There's not a day that doesn't go by that I don't see you guys. You know, the MLE program is doing excellent, and I couldn't be more proud of the work you guys are doing, the police department, the fire department. And you guys all deserve those kudos, and I'm super appreciative of the work you guys do daily, because our community is far better because of it. But also, some of the unsung heroes that aren't seen that much, but is Public Works. These guys are out there killing it. And so I've been kind of following them around a little bit and watching some of the projects they do, and putting some a little bit of information out on Facebook about like what projects they're doing, and kind of taking some videos, and because I'm making it a determined purpose to go against the grain on the narrative that, you know, these guys aren't doing something, or they don't do enough, or the city doesn't care, or whatever, right? And actually, I'm doing that with everybody, all of them. Anytime anything negative is said at all, I want to say something positive, because I refuse to let a negative narrative be the thing that's a driver. So I just wanted to give a shout out to Public Work. Wade over there, he's doing a great job. Those guys are great. I've gotten to know a lot of them. Fantastic fellows. And we're blessed to have them. We're blessed to have all of you guys and doing the jobs you're doing. And you're doing a really good job. And I just really appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, Vice Mayor Smith.
Must be a time for a shout out. So I want to give a shout out to the Father's House that, of course, the Lord's Gym Mud Run. They had over 3,000 children this past weekend. I think that they rivaled at least the Feather Fiesta days in attendance, well over 8,000 in attendance. So it was just an amazing 2 days. But the biggest kind of takeaway, other than just the event itself, was all the investment of various businesses and individuals. We're just a great community, from the banking industry to restaurants. Just everyone just stepped it up and really made that event possible. So I just want to give a shout out to our business community, just so generous and willing to step up and make things like that happen. And dovetailing with that, a public comment made earlier about just some of the challenges with our youth. And I want to also just take this moment to talk about, we have the Girls and Boys Club here in Oroville that do just tremendous work. And then there's the Axiom, perhaps Councilwoman Riggs would like to comment on that. And then the YMCA, who again, just does great work, and it's also an organization that receives help from the city. But I think that as a community, we're doing a lot to really try to reach out and impact.
Also the live spot.
Yeah. And I'm sure, that's why I was going to, because I'm sure you can add to that, because you were in that industry as the director of the Axiom for some years. And so I just really want to elevate all those wonderful nonprofits that do so much to reach out to our kids. So if you know of a troubled teen in our community, there are great resources, great organizations that really can impact and make. And there was lots of amazing stories, which we don't have time to do that. But that as I visit these different organizations, they step it up and they talk about how that they've, really rescued kids from just making poor choices in their life. So we're blessed community all the way around. I just want to say thank you to all of you that contribute and do an amazing job.
Mm-hmm.
Councilman Riggs again.
I announced this earlier, but many of you guys weren't in here. Mr. Belser is celebrating his 12th anniversary at the city of Oroville this 11th.
Cool.
So I want to make sure it really goes. So, thank you.
All right. I'm going to take a little privilege here real quick, and it's kind of happened since our last council meeting, but our city administrator took a little action the other day to go out to supervisors and request some funding And we really hadn't given him direction. He just kind of did it on his own. And I said, yeah, you got the mayor's stamp, and it's not really the mayor's authority, but go ahead and do it. I mean, we could always turn the money down. And how was the end result was?
Yeah, I was going to actually thank the Board of Supervisors. So we went out there with Amy and Susie Kokums she's our program manager for Mission Esperanza, and the county had some remaining funds available from their ARPA money, their American Recovery Act funds from COVID. And it was a couple Tuesdays ago, they were looking to prioritize these funds, and we requested $500,000 to help us with the Mission Esperanza. And frankly, after a lot of discussion at that meeting that day, I was very surprised, and maybe surprised isn't the right word, but they had a lot of competing interests out there, and they weren't going to make everybody happy, but they, Supervisor Conley and Supervisor Kimmelshoe specifically, and it was a unanimous 5-0 support, but those two individuals specifically spearheaded and really were in support of funding the city of Chico, sorry. They funded the city of Chico
And they did
previously.
1.7 million.
1.7, yep. But they wanted to fund the city of Oroville as well for some pallet shelter purchases. So they did approve $500,000 for the city, which was fantastic news.
We appreciate that.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate his initiative to do that.
Right.
It was off the radar, and appreciate you finding it. So.
Well, and again, I have to say, it was a collective effort. I think Susie had reached out, and there was a number of us talking about it, so it was a number of individuals.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
I think we're up to administration reports.
Oh,
Or no,
Miss-
excuse me, future agenda items.
Mr. Mayor, I do have one public comment on future agenda items.
Oh, okay.
Bill Spear.
Bill.
Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, I would like it to be a review of the bid ordinance. I came in probably 2 years ago and had a pretty lengthy complaint about the Business Improvement District, and so I'm asking you guys to bring it up. I got it in writing, I'll give you each a copy, but the Business Improvement District has failed to provide an annual budget as required by the city ordinance. The Business Improvement District has failed to keep financial records of the money collected by the city ordinance. And that was one of my, on the last complaints when I come up, but a couple years ago to bring it to you, but I figured I'd throw it in on this one too. The Business Improvement District has failed to be fair and impartial. The city of Oroville has failed to translate the promises from the proposal for the ordinance into the ordinance. They came with the big old giant proposal and said, we will do all this stuff. And when we got the ordinance was just a little bitty line that hardly had anything, any protections for the businesses in the downtown. The city of Oroville has failed to provide oversight for the money that their ordinance mandate. It's a mandated money, and I think there should be more oversight to it. And what I'm asking is just to re-bring it up and look at what was promised and look at what is being was being given. 4 of you came to the election that we just had on Thursday, and thank you for doing that and for all the people that participated. But there was an issue and a problem with the election. It wasn't a fair and honest election. A week before the election, they actually started ballot harvesting, and they didn't let everybody know that was running for office that they're doing ballot harvesting, because I would have went out and started saying, hey, if you can't make it, you can come vote early, but they didn't let everyone know. And it's very, very unfair, their elections. They had a locked box and tried to make it look like it was fair, but they had to have a locked box because there were already ballots in it. And so I'm just asking the city to look at it and to be fair. Also, there a lot of bullying going on. If you say anything against them, they make it really hard for you to get a permit. They called the person from the city to come to the board meeting and made accusations about me just because I tried to get a permit to do an event. And it's a lot of ridiculous stuff, and I would really appreciate it if you guys could get it on the ballot and just take a look at it and see if what I'm saying is true or not. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments for our item?
Nope, Mr. Mayor, that's it.
All right, thank you. Then we go to administration reports. Folks, department heads, tell us the story. Who's up first?
Did you want to go? Okay.
Sure.
No, we can just take one and we can just pass it down.
I usually wait for you.
Amy first?
I just wanted to let you know that the Wyandotte Avenue Improvement Project is underway, and we're projecting to be complete before the end of the summer. Also, I believe at the next council meeting, Susie Cockums, who is our consultant with the Mission Esperanza, will be giving an update to council on the status of the project and the additional funding that we've applied for. Hopefully, we're hoping to have an award notification at that time, too. Also, the city administrator asked that we prepare a press release for the Lincoln Street project to try to get the word out on that. So we are going to have that done by the end of the week.
Right.
Good. Go ahead. Bill?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple quick things. I've already alluded to them earlier in our conversation. I do have 2 police officers that are graduating from the academy. It'll be this Friday at the Paradise Performing Arts Center at 3:30 if anyone is interested in attending. And that is going to make a significant impact on our staffing at the police department. So we're headed in the right direction. I'm just happy to report that to you. I don't have anything amazing like Ron will have, but that's I have, Mr. Mayor.
How about the cameras? Are they going up?
Oh, yeah, I would, thank you for reminding me of that. There has been some information or controversy or whatever you want to call it. It's, chatter on Facebook about, the flock cameras, and apparently, there was the thought that one was pushed down. Honestly, we don't know whose that camera is, because after talking with Flock, I was out there Saturday taking a look at it when, I was made aware of it. It sure looks like a Flock camera, but when talking with the rep on Saturday, they're unaware of any cameras being put in. What I'm suspecting has happened is that they have had their engineers involved, and their engineers are probably doing topography studies and things like that to ensure interconnection, and they have temporary things put up that the sales rep may not be, or the area rep may not be aware of. So whether it was a Flock camera or not a Flock camera, I don't know. We've collected the equipment. We're having a touch-off telephone conference tomorrow at 12:30, so we'll have much more information at that point and kind of have an idea of when these things will come out. Now, if that is one of their typical installations, I will be back to the council asking you to cancel this contract because it is absolutely unacceptable. It has to be a much more robust pole that's supporting this, and it must have be much more theft-proof and vandalism-proof in order for us to accept responsibility for something like that, because I don't consider 2 3-inch hardware store hose clamps very secure.
Yeah. Thank you.
Or
Who's next?
or a 6
I wanted
foot
to-
pole.
Sorry, Vice Mayor Smith, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to say amen, because I saw that social media post, and I thought, oh, my goodness, if that is the infrastructure, we're going to have challenges. So I appreciate that comment. So now I'll hold you to it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Next,
I'll go.
Mr. Bell.
Just give you guys an update on our stats for the month of May, now that we're in June. Right now, code enforcement has 201 active code enforcement cases. They closed 80 in the month of May and opened 110 new cases. They removed 27 abandoned or hazardous vehicles from roadways and private properties. 18 building code violations, 16 of those were stop work notices. Those are contractors doing construction without a permit. 15 multifamily cases. These are multifamily structures. We're doing some inspection on those more often now we got a little more free time other than the fire inspections. And 47 public nuisance cases, and these are areas of blight where our guys are out and about. They're very proactive. They got a very good routine going on right now. They're working well with one another, and a really productive program. The techs attended 2 webinar trainings. We invited planning to one of them. That was the accessory dwelling units and junior accessory dwelling units. The state impact it's going to have on our local regulations and updating our ordinances for ADUs and junior accessory dwelling units, and where we're going to be limited on what we can control on that and the effect it's going to have on our city. The second training was on some drone laws where code enforcement's using drones. I anticipate not using any drones for any sort of case at this time, just because of the liability and it's pretty cloudy and gray how they get the information and how it's used in a warrant. So until that kind of, the dust kind of settles on that, I won't feel comfortable using that. Then as far as the fire inspections go, we've conducted close to 3,000 inspections on properties, and we're opening right now right around 500 cases for our properties that have grass that's over 4 inches or need fire breaks. And that, I anticipate those inspections to be over 4,000, between 4,000 and 4,500. So that's a big impact on the my staff, but they're fighting their way through it, and we'll have that stuff will settle down around mid-June.
Thank you. Any questions? Thank you, sir. Good report. Huh?
I have a handful of items for you. Following last council meeting's approval for an MOU with the American Planning Association, 2 of their team members came out and toured the South Oroville area this morning and sat and had conversations with Mayor Pittman and Councilmember Weber. We had great progress made as far as what format they're going to use going forward for the charrettes and the community involvement. For the Oroville Convention Center, we held the bid walk last Friday. We had 5 contractors in attendance, which was good to see. And so we hope to have some good bids out of that. We also held our first architectural review committee last week to review the City Hall restrooms and lobby remodel and the potential remodel at the Scout House, as well as the Girdler Building. The Public Works and Streets crew has been addressing many sidewalk repairs or replacements and minor street repairs throughout the community. They've done a great job. Following a few of the community meetings for the Feather River Trails Master Plan, our consultant is seeking out grant funding sources. We have one potential funding source, but the timeline is next week, so it's rather tight. We don't know that we'll make that one, but there is the Prop 68 funding coming out at the end of the year, so we're hoping to submit a larger grant application so we can see some of those amenities addressed along our Feather River. The Clean California grant project with Caltrans for the on and off ramps at Montgomery Street and Oroville Boulevard is underway, as you can see. The art installation is anticipated to be installed in the end of July. So there's 8 beautiful large art pieces that have been produced by the Rainforest Art Project. In a few weeks, we will be also publishing the construction RFP for the Caltrans, the State Route 162 project that will complete the connection of curb, gutter, and sidewalk all the way from the Highway 70 interchange, or excuse me, on-ramp up Oroville Boulevard, up Olive Highway to Foothill Boulevard. Following that project, and I know I'm a broken record on this, but following that project, Caltrans will come back in 2025 and repave that entire corridor through Oroville, which will be nice. It'll be restriped, repaved, lighting will be installed. So this is just one initial piece of a larger project. Again, we have some other mini roadways in engineering right now, so we may just see a few internal roadways paved this fiscal year, but a large number of roadways will be paved in the 24-25 fiscal year. And also with our rebranding, staff has been coordinating meetings with all of the council members so that you'll see the final product before we deploy it to the public. So many good things happening.
Good. Councilman Thompson.
Absolutely, the community partners will be included in that.
Councilman Thompson's on the queue.
Thank you. Great to hear about the 162. Can you say again when they project that to be kicked off or to start?
To start, we will have the RFP flown end of June, beginning of July. We're just waiting for Caltrans approval so that we can publish that RFP. We hope to have that kicked off before the end of this calendar year. So we have been working with Ghirardelli, who is our construction manager, and we want to break ground on that project September, October, November-ish, just depending on where we are with the bids.
Gotcha, thank you.
Absolutely.
Another question, I know the county and the city are working on Ophir Road. How's the county? I know they're going to be lead agency on that, as I understand. Is that moving forward?
Yes, that is moving forward. Actually, we have a meeting tomorrow or Thursday to follow up on that. The county is moving forward with their engineering component of it. So once they complete that, our engineering is already underway on that project. We'll cobble them together, put out a joint RFP
Cool.
for construction, and that'll also be
Good
repaved.
process.
Yep.
Good to hear. Thank you. Ruth, anything more?
Yeah, I just want to let you know we're still working on our software implementation. I know you've been hearing that for over a year. We are going live July 1st, so staff is getting all geared up. We have a trainer coming next week for 3 days, so we're getting the last minute hands-on
Good.
training for that. Must have been having my head in the budget because I looked at my schedule, and we also have our auditors coming for 3 days next week. So it's going to be busy, chaos like normal. But it's hard to believe we're finishing another year. It's like wrapping up another year. So they're coming to do an interim audit in anticipation of the year end. So we're going to be busy next week, but we're getting things done, and we'll get there.
Good. Anyone else?
Mr. Mayor, can I just add one more
Yes.
thing real quick? I'm sorry, I forgot. I just wanted to make the council aware that I had attended an NAACP meeting in the beginning of May, and we had a discussion regarding the flock cameras. It was a very good discussion, robust discussion. And then we also, one of the topics that came up was the desire to have a community meet and greet with the police department. So I just wanted to announce right now, we've begun the process of planning that. Right now, there's still a lot that has to go into the baking of this event. So once we get a little bit further down the road, have a little bit more of it mixed up, we'll be working with our community partners. Right now, it's tentatively scheduled to occur at Martin Luther King Park on July 22.
Okay, cool. Sounds good.
Mr. Mayor, just one follow-up comment into what Don had mentioned about the meeting we had this morning with the planning group. And I concur. I thought it was a great meeting. I think they got a ton of information from both yourself and Councilmember Weber. I really appreciate that. And I think it's going to be an exciting process. I just wanted the council to know and the public to know that they are going to be back in, I believe, July. That's the plan. Yeah. So they will schedule meetings with each one of you to get more input on what you see or what you think could help the South Oroville community, and also reach out. They're going to have a number of meetings with various stakeholders. They did meet with a couple of them today, but they were only, we were jam-packed this morning, but they're going to meet with a number of stakeholders throughout the community, and then ultimately there'll be opportunity then for community input as well. So it's going to be, they're going to, I think, very, very diverse and skilled and experienced individuals. They're going to bring a different perspective, which I think would be very helpful. So.
Well, I'd add to that too, the two gentlemen saw some of the needs, and then when they go back to their group, they'll find people that have the special skill sets to help us with our needs. So that was their, kind of like their first meeting here to find out where and what, and they'll go back to their group and find those people. That's really encouraging, I thought. Just, and you know, yeah, we're targeting a certain area, but it's going to apply to the entire city, what the strategies come up. So it's very helpful, yeah. Anyone else? Nothing from legal?
Well, sure. I'll mention, we do have, I won't give you the address, but we do have some inspection warrants that were just issued by the court. So we'll be able to go conduct some inspections and then deal with abatement of the properties. But again, I won't give away the address, but we've got some good stuff moving forward with code enforcement. That's all for public notice, for public consumption.
Yeah, I would say that the planning group was very impressed with our code enforcement department. Mr. Belser was very impressive to that group to see such a strong effort being made in the city with the legal aspects too, so,
They are an impressive group.
yeah. All right, anything else? Looking around? With that, I will call for adjournment of this meeting. The next regular meeting would be held on June 20th. Oh, no, June 20th, 2023 at 4 PM. Yeah, one more meeting in June, right? Okay. So, yeah, so adjourned. Thank you all.